Hi, my name is Kevin Bonham, and this is the second in a series of video tutorials on how to use Illustrator targeted at scientists. In the first video, we talked about making and manipulating some simple shapes, and in this video, we're going to talk about some more complex shapes. And specifically, we're going to talk about using the pen tool and the direct selection tool. So again, you need to make sure you have this toolbar here. If you don't have it, window, make sure that tools is selected. So before we talked about making simple shapes using the rectangle tool and some other stuff under this menu, and those are great, but they can also be a bit limited. And so if we want to make some more complex shapes with tons of weird sides, we want to use the pen tool. So the pen tool allows us to do some freehand drawing. So if we have the pen tool selected, shortcut is P, and we click, we create what's called an anchor point. And if I click somewhere else, then it makes a second anchor point and draws a line between them. So I can do this to make any number of strange shapes, and all of these guys are going to stay connected. If I want an open shape or just a line like this, then I can go to my selection tool and then manipulate this independently. If I want to stay on the pen tool and make something else after I've created a line like this, I can select P again, or go back and click the pen tool again, and now I am making another shape. I'll hit P, and now I can make another shape. So you can make as many of these as you want. The dots will be connected unless I reselect the pen tool or a different tool, or if I close off a shape by reattaching to that last anchor point. And once I do that, now I can make a new shape. Again, if I close it off by clicking that last anchor point, you see the little thing next to the pen tool is a circle that creates an entire shape, and now I have a new shape to create. So I'm going to go back to my selection tool with V, and now let's say that I kind of like this shape, but it's not exactly the way that I want it to be. I want to drag this anchor point up a little bit higher and move these guys around. So if I use my selection tool, the black arrow that we talked about last time, I can't actually manipulate individual anchors by themselves. Anytime I use the selection tool to select an object, it's going to select the whole thing. If I want to instead manipulate individual anchor points, I need to use the direct selection tool. Keyboard shortcut for that is A. With the direct selection tool, I can double click on a point, and now I can click and drag that anchor independently of all the other anchor points on this object. So I can manipulate this guy and do any sort of thing I want here. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that all of these, the connections between these anchor points are points. They're jagged lines here, and I'm a biologist, and a lot of times I want to make cells that have sort of rounded shapes. And in order to do that, we need to modify these anchor points. So as they are, they're just vertices between two lines that are going to come in a sharp angle. But underneath the pen tool, you have this option to convert anchor point. So keyboard shortcut Shift-C. The convert anchor point tool allows me to make these anchor points different. And so now if I click and drag, rather than moving that anchor point, it's going to give me these little handles with which I can change the curve that connects this anchor point to the other ones. So we can grab all of these anchor points, take these handles, and you can see here I can select one handle independently, or I can have different handles here. And so we can adjust all of these anchor points to have different shapes. And this takes a little bit of practice to get used to. It's nice to just go in and manipulate these. Again, if we want to move the anchor point, we like the curve, but we want to move it, we go with the keyboard shortcut A to get our white arrow, this direct selection tool. We can move these anchor points around. Once these have handles, I can use the direct selection tool to adjust the handles to get different shapes that I like. And so you can just play around with these guys and make a shape to your desire. Another potential option is to select multiple anchor points And now you can see I'm adjusting all three of these anchor points together. If I had just selected this anchor point, I would just move that guy around. But I can click and drag, select multiple anchor points, and then move them all together. This works just like selecting objects. You can see the open anchor points are the ones that I haven't selected. Closed anchor points I have selected. You can shift click to grab an anchor point. You can shift click to deselect an anchor point. So let's say I just want to move these two guys. Now I can move those independently. So that can be useful to make all kinds of crazy shapes. I'm going to go back to my regular selection tool, remove all these guys. So that's it for making complex shapes with the pen tool and the direct selection tool. Next up, we're going to talk about making some other types of complex shapes using the Pathfinder tool. So stay tuned for that.